Daisy died freezing in a prison cell, while her 5 blood brothers threw a $1 billion birthday bash for the fake sister who put her there. But death wasn't the end. When she opened her eyes, she was back. Only this time, her brothers could hear the fake sister's twisted, venomous thoughts. The cold of the concrete floor was the last thing Daisy felt. She had spent 3 years in the maximum security wing of a state penitentiary for a hit-and-run she didn't commit. The real driver? Savannah, the sweet, angelic adopted daughter of the billionaire Davenport family. The girl Daisy's 5 biological brothers chose over her, their actual flesh and blood. Daisy coughed, her lungs rattling with untreated pneumonia, as she stared at the tiny barred window. Her eldest brother, Tristan, the ruthless CEO, had paid off the prison doctors to ignore her symptoms. Let her rot, he had told the warden. It's the least she deserves for trying to take Savannah away from us. Her twin brother, Leo, had been the one to testify against her. He stood on the witness stand, tears in his eyes, swearing he saw her behind the wheel. Daisy died that night in the dark, her heart giving out, not from the illness, but from the crushing, suffocating weight of betrayal. Then, a sharp, blinding light tore through the darkness. A gasp ripped from Daisy's throat as her eyes snapped open. She wasn't in a cell. She was staring up at a massive, glittering chandelier. The scent of polished mahogany and expensive lilies filled the air. Daisy, what is wrong with you? Are you a psychopath? The booming voice made Daisy flinch. She blinked, her vision coming into focus. She was sitting on the cold marble landing of the grand staircase in the Davenport estate. At the bottom of the stairs lay Savannah. She was curled into a ball, weeping pathetically, her flawless blonde hair draped perfectly over her shoulders. Kneeling beside her was Tristan, his tailored suit completely forgotten as he cradled her head. Standing over Daisy was Leo, his face twisted in absolute disgust. Daisy's breath hitched. She knew this day. It was November 14th, exactly 1 year before her conviction. The day of the infamous staircase incident. In her past life, she had spent the entire afternoon begging, crying, and clinging to Tristan's legs, swearing she hadn't pushed Savannah. She had told them the girl slipped on purpose. They responded by locking Daisy in the basement without food for 3 days. Daisy looked down at her hands. They were unscarred. The prison tattoos were gone. She was 21 again. She had been reborn. "Are you deaf?" Leo shouted, grabbing Daisy's arm and hauling her to her feet. "You pushed her. We all saw it." A strange calm washed over Daisy, the desperate, love-starved girl who craved her family's affection had died on that prison floor. She pulled her arm out of Leo's grip with such cold detachment that he actually stumbled back in surprise. "I didn't push her," Daisy said, her voice eerily steady. "But if you're so convinced I did, call the police. Have me arrested for assault." Leo froze. Down below, Tristan's head snapped up, his dark eyes narrowing at Daisy. They were expecting hysterics. They were expecting her to grovel. "Tristan, please don't be mad at Daisy," Savannah cried out, her voice trembling like a frightened bird. "I know she didn't mean it. She was just upset that you bought me this necklace instead of her. It was an accident." In Daisy's past life, that lie had sealed her fate. But this time, before Tristan could unleash his fury on her, something bizarre happened. The grand foyer descended into a suffocating, unnatural silence. Tristan suddenly gasped, his hands dropping from Savannah's shoulders. Leo clutched his temples, his eyes darting around the room in pure panic. From the hallway, her second oldest brother, Declan, the family's brilliant trauma surgeon, dropped his medical bag. It hit the marble floor with a loud, echoing thud. Daisy frowned. What was going on? She couldn't hear it, but they could. Echoing crystal clear inside the minds of all 5 Davenport brothers was a voice. It sounded exactly like Savannah, but the tone was dripping with venom, malice, and cruel satisfaction. Stupid bitch, that'll teach her to wear the dress Tristan bought. I barely even bruised my knee, but I'm going to milk this until they lock her in the attic for a week. God, Tristan is such a gullible idiot. Look at him, practically crying over a scratch. Tristan physically recoiled from Savannah, his face draining of all color. He stared down at her, his jaw slack. Did you just... Tristan stammered, looking from Savannah to the empty space around him. Tristan, Savannah sniffled, looking up at him with wide, innocent eyes. My ankle hurts so much. Come on, pick me up, you pathetic lapdog. Carry me to the sofa and go scream at your trashy blood sister. This time, Leo let out a choked noise. He stumbled back against the banister, looking as if he had been struck by lightning. Who said that? Leo yelled, his voice cracking. Who the hell is talking? Declan rushed forward, ignoring Savannah completely, and grabbed Tristan's shoulder. Tristan, Declan whispered, his clinical composure completely shattered. Did you hear? A voice. I heard it. A deep, furious voice echoed from the top of the stairs. Harrison, the 3rd brother, a renowned prosecuting attorney, stood there. His knuckles were white as he gripped the railing, his eyes locked onto Savannah with a terrifying intensity. I heard it loud and clear. Savannah looked around, genuinely confused. Heard what? Harrison, what's going on? It hurts. Daisy watched this bizarre tableau unfold with absolute indifference. She didn't know they were hearing Savannah's inner thoughts. She just thought they were being dramatic, as usual. She didn't care anymore. If the performance is over, Daisy said coldly, stepping around Leo. I'm going to my room. Daisy, wait. Leo reached out, his voice lacking its usual venom. He looked utterly terrified, glancing between Daisy and Savannah. Don't touch me, Daisy said, her tone like ice. She didn't look back as she walked up the stairs, leaving the 5 of them frozen in a waking nightmare. Daisy's bedroom was a stark contrast to the rest of the opulent Davenport manor. While Savannah had the master suite in the east wing, decorated like a modern princess's castle, Daisy had been shoved into a repurposed guest room near the servants' quarters. She pulled her suitcase from under the bed and threw it open. She was leaving. She had a small trust fund from her late grandmother, the only person in this wretched family who actually loved her, and it unlocked when she turned 21, which was yesterday. Daisy didn't need their billions. She didn't need their toxic love. Downstairs in the drawing room, the atmosphere was suffocating. Declan was examining Savannah's ankle on the velvet chaise lounge. Tristan, Harrison, Leo, and the youngest brother, Gideon, who had just wandered in from his music studio, were standing around in absolute silence, staring at her. It's just a mild sprain, Declan said, his voice unusually strained. He kept scrutinizing Savannah's face. As a doctor, he knew pain, and he knew faking it. It feels broken, Dec. Savannah whimpered, forcing a tear to trail down her cheek. Daisy pushed me so hard, I felt something snap. If he puts me in a cast, I can't go to the gala on Saturday. Whatever. I'll just get him to write me a prescription for those strong painkillers. They make me feel amazing. Gideon, the quiet, brooding artist of the family, dropped his coffee mug. It shattered on the floor. You, Gideon pointed a shaking finger at Savannah. You just thought about painkillers. Savannah blinked, her innocent mask faltering for a microsecond. What? Gideon, I don't know what you mean. I just said it feels broken. Harrison stepped forward, his prosecutor instincts flaring. He knelt beside the chaise lounge, looking Savannah dead in the eye. Savannah, tell me exactly what happened on the stairs, step by step. Why is he looking at me like that? Did that camera in the hallway catch me? No, I checked it yesterday. The red light was off. Just cry, Savannah. They always cave when you cry. Savannah choked out a sob, burying her face in her hands. Daisy and I were arguing. I told her she shouldn't be jealous of my necklace. Then she shoved me. She told me she wished I was dead. Tristan felt his stomach drop into a bottomless abyss. He had heard it. They had all heard it. The camera, the intentional crying, the cold, calculated manipulation. For 3 years since Daisy had been brought back to the Davenport family, found in a foster home after being kidnapped as a baby, Tristan had believed Savannah was the victim of Daisy's jealousy. He had punished his own flesh and blood. He had looked at Daisy's desperate, tear-stained face and called her a liar. I'm going to check the hallway camera, Harrison said abruptly, standing up. Harrison, don't be ridiculous, Tristan said, his voice hoarse, praying to God he was losing his mind, praying this was some shared, auditory hallucination. The camera has been broken for a week. Thank God. I was worried for a second. Now, how do I get them to kick Daisy out by tonight? I need her out of the house before the charity gala. If she's gone, I can frame her for stealing the auction money. It's a flawless plan. The silence that followed that thought was deafening. Declan backed away from the chaise lounge as if Savannah were infected with a deadly virus. Leo, who had always been Savannah's fiercest protector, looked physically sick. He clamped a hand over his mouth, stumbling back toward the doorway. Frame her, Leo whispered, his voice trembling. You're going to frame her? Leo. I didn't say anything, Savannah cried, genuinely panicked now. She could sense the shift in the room. The absolute devotion of her brothers was evaporating right before her eyes. Why are you all acting so weird? Before anyone could answer, the heavy wooden doors of the drawing room swung open. Daisy walked in, dragging her rolling suitcase behind her. She had changed out of the designer dress she had foolishly worn to try and impress them, and was now wearing a simple pair of jeans and a sweater. The 5 men turned to look at her. For the first time in Daisy's life, their eyes weren't filled with contempt, pity, or anger. They looked at her with a horrifying mix of shock, guilt, and dawning realization. I'm leaving, Daisy announced, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. I will contact my lawyers to draft a document severing my ties with the Davenport family. You don't have to worry about me tarnishing your precious reputation ever again. Tristan stepped forward, his hands raised slightly as if approaching a wild, frightened animal. Daisy, what are you doing? I'm granting you your wish, Tristan, Daisy said smoothly. You have your perfect sister. She gestured to Savannah, who was watching her with wide eyes. You don't need the trashy blood relative ruining your family photos. Yes, finally, the stupid bitch is actually leaving. I didn't even have to try that hard. Good riddance. Now the Davenport fortune is solely mine. The venom in the psychic voice hit the brothers like a physical blow. Gideon covered his ears, squeezing his eyes shut. Harrison's jaw tightened so hard it looked ready to break. "You're not leaving," Leo blurted out, rushing forward and standing between Daisy and the grand front doors. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Daisy, wait. We can talk about this." "Talk about what, Leo?" Daisy laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that held no warmth. "Talk about how you wanted to lock me in the basement? Or how you wanted to call the cops on me? Move." "No, Daisy, please," Leo begged, his voice cracking. He reached out to grab her hand, but Daisy flinched violently, pulling her arm back as if his touch burned. In her past life, she would have killed for him to hold her hand. Now, the thought of his skin against hers made her stomach turn. She remembered him on that witness stand. She remembered his lies. The sheer terror in her eyes when he reached for her struck Leo like a physical dagger to the chest. He froze, his hands suspended in midair, a tear finally spilling over his eyelashes. "Let her go, Leo," Savannah said softly from the couch, playing the role of the benevolent peacemaker. "If Daisy needs space to cool down, we should let her. We shouldn't force her to stay if she hates us so much." "Push her out the door, Leo. Throw her suitcase onto the driveway. Make sure she leaves her house keys." Tristan's face morphed from shock into pure, unadulterated fury. He slowly turned his head to look at Savannah. The girl he had pampered, the girl he had bought a $500,000 diamond necklace for just yesterday, suddenly looked like a stranger wearing a terrifying mask. "Harrison," Tristan commanded, his voice deadly quiet, devoid of any emotion. "Yeah?" Harrison replied, his eyes locked on Savannah. "Lock down the estate," Tristan said. "Tell the security guards at the front gate that no one leaves and no one enters." Daisy frowned, her grip tightening on her suitcase handle. "You can't hold me here against my will, Tristan. That's false imprisonment." Tristan finally looked at her. The ruthless, cold-hearted CEO looked completely shattered. His eyes were swimming with an agony she had never seen before. "I'm not locking the gates to keep you prisoner, Daisy," Tristan whispered, his voice trembling. "I'm locking them to keep you safe, because nobody is leaving this house until we find out exactly what the hell is going on." The heavy mahogany doors of the drawing room slammed shut with a finality that made Savannah flinch. The click of the deadbolt sliding into place echoed like a gunshot. Daisy stood by the doorway, her hand still resting on the handle of her suitcase. She watched her 5 brothers, the men who had once been her judge, jury, and executioners, circle Savannah like predators, realizing they had been nursing a viper in their den. "Tristan, you're scaring me," Savannah whispered, pulling her cashmere cardigan tighter around her shoulders. She looked the picture of innocence, her large blue eyes welling with fresh tears. "Why did you lock the doors? Is this because of Daisy? I already said she didn't mean to hurt me. God, they are acting so unhinged. I need to call Richard at Morgan Stanley and move the rest of the embezzled charity funds before Tristan decides to audit my accounts. If he finds out I stole $2 million from his foundation, he'll cut off my credit cards." The silence in the room fractured, Tristan staggered backward, bumping into a heavy antique bookshelf. His face went ashen, all the blood draining from his aristocratic features. "The charity funds," he choked out, his voice a ragged whisper. You took the money from the Children's Hospital Initiative?" Savannah's breath hitched. Her mask of innocence didn't just slip. It completely shattered. She stared at Tristan, her eyes wide with a sudden, primal terror. "What?" she stammered, her voice pitching up an octave. I don't know what you're talking about, Tristan. I would never." "How the hell does he know that? I used the encrypted servers. I burned the ledger." "Who told him? Was it Daisy?" It had to be Daisy. Harrison, the ruthless prosecutor who had never lost a case in his life, stepped directly into Savannah's line of sight. The air around him turned frigid. "There are no encrypted servers that can hide you from me, Savannah," Harrison said, his voice deadly quiet. "And Daisy didn't tell us a damn thing." Daisy watched this exchange with a deepening frown. She hadn't said a word about the charity funds. In her past life, Savannah had pinned that exact embezzlement scandal on her, forging her signature on the transfer documents. It was the catalyst that pushed the brothers to disown Daisy right before the car crash. How did Tristan know? How did Harrison know about the encrypted servers? Gideon, the quietest of the brothers, looked like he was going to be physically sick. He pressed his palms against his eyes. "Make it stop," he muttered. Her voice, it's like poison. It's so loud. Savannah scrambled backward on the chaise lounge, clutching her sprained ankle tightly to her chest, completely forgetting she was supposed to be in agonizing pain. "What voice? What are you all talking about? You're insane. Let me out of here." "They're bluffing. They have to be bluffing. Just play the victim. Cry harder. Mention Mum's dying, wish to take care of me. That always breaks them." "Don't you dare," Leo snarled, lunging forward so fast that Declan had to grab his arm to hold him back. Leo's face was contorted with a rage he had only ever directed at Daisy before. "Don't you dare bring Mom into this, you sick, twisted sociopath," Savannah screamed, pressing herself against the back of the sofa. "Daisy did this to you," she shrieked, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at her. "She poisoned your minds. She's a witch. She's jealous of me because Mom loved me more." Daisy didn't flinch. She just looked at Savannah with hollow, dead eyes. "I haven't said a word, Savannah. You're digging your own grave entirely by yourself." Declan, the surgeon who had spent the last 3 years treating Savannah for a myriad of mysterious, stress-induced illnesses whenever Daisy supposedly bullied her, walked slowly toward the girl. His clinical, detached demeanor was terrifying. "The panic attacks," Declan said softly. "The heart palpitations. The time you claimed Daisy put ground glass in your food and we pumped your stomach. Were any of those real?" Savannah sobbed hysterically. "Yes, Declan, you know I'm sick. You're my doctor." "He's catching on. Oh, God. If he runs a toxicology screen on my blood from last week, he'll find the ipecac I took to make myself throw up blood. I needed him to think Daisy poisoned me so they'd kick her out." Declan stopped dead in his tracks. A single, agonizing tear rolled down his cheek. He had violated his Hippocratic oath for this girl. He had sedated Daisy, his own sister, and locked her in a hospital psychiatric ward for 48 hours because he believed she was a homicidal threat to Savannah. "Ipecac," Declan whispered, his voice cracking with the weight of absolute devastation. He fell to his knees on the Persian rug, burying his face in his hands. My God, I locked my own sister in a psych ward because you took Ipecac. The puzzle pieces were finally slamming together in Daisy's mind, the horror in their eyes, the specific responses to things Savannah hadn't said out loud. They could hear her. Somehow, by some twisted miracle of her rebirth, Daisy's brothers were hearing Savannah's internal monologue. The universe had ripped the curtain away, exposing the monster they had worshipped, and forcing them to watch the slaughter of their own biological sister in high definition. Daisy should have felt vindicated. She should have laughed. She should have felt a rush of triumphant joy. Instead, she felt absolutely nothing. It was too late. Tristan, Daisy said, her voice cutting through the sounds of Savannah's hysterics and Declan's weeping. Unlock the door. Tristan turned to her. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the span of 10 minutes. The arrogant, untouchable billionaire was gone, replaced by a broken man standing in the ruins of his own family. Daisy. Tristan stepped toward her, his hands shaking as he reached out. Daisy, please. We didn't know. Oh my God, we didn't know. Unlock the door, Daisy repeated, her tone as hard as diamond. No, wait, Harrison pleaded, his legal mind racing to salvage the unsalvageable. Daisy, you have to understand. For 3 years, she manipulated us. Every time we looked at you, she painted a picture of a monster. We were blind. We were so incredibly blind. And whose fault is that, Harrison? Daisy asked coldly. You're a renowned prosecutor. You analyze evidence for a living. Yet you took the word of a crying girl over the physical proof of my innocence every single time. You didn't just blindly believe her. You wanted to believe her, because it was easier to hate the dirty, traumatized foster kid who ruined your perfect aesthetic than to admit your precious adopted sister was flawed. Harrison flinched as if Daisy had struck him across the face. If they hate me, I have nothing. I need to trigger the backup plan. The brakes. Yes, the mechanic at Autotech already cut the brake lines on Daisy's Porsche. If I can just convince her to drive away right now, she'll crash at the bottom of the canyon. If she dies, I can still salvage this. The silence that followed that thought wasn't just deafening. It was lethal. The temperature in the room plummeted to absolute zero. Leo was the first to react. A guttural roar ripped from his throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony and rage. He tore out of Declan's loose grip and lunged at Savannah. He grabbed her by the collar of her expensive cardigan, hauling her off the chaise lounge and throwing her onto the marble floor. You cut her brakes, Leo screamed, his face inches from hers, spit flying from his lips. You paid a mechanic to cut my sister's brakes, Savannah shrieked, scrambling backward like a cornered rat. The facade was gone entirely now. She realized with terrifying certainty that they knew. She didn't know how, but they knew everything. I didn't, she screamed, her voice shrill and desperate. You're making this up. You're framing me. Gideon, Tristan barked, his voice vibrating with a terrifying, lethal authority. Call the police. Tell them to send a squad car immediately. Attempted murder. Tristan, no, Savannah wailed, crawling toward him and grabbing his tailored pant leg. Please, I'm your sister. You raised me. You love me. Tristan looked down at her. The disgust in his eyes was so profound It was almost tangible. He kicked his leg free, sending her sprawling back onto the rug. You are nothing to me. You are a parasite that infected this family. He turned back to Daisy. All 5 of them did. Leo was openly weeping, dropping to his knees on the marble floor. Daisy, he sobbed, reaching out toward the hem of her jeans. Daisy, don't leave, please. We'll make it right. We'll give you everything. The company, the estates, anything you want. I'm so sorry. I'm so damn sorry. Daisy looked down at the twin brother who, in another life, had sent her to her death with a lie. Do you know what the cold feels like, Leo? Daisy asked softly. Leo blinked through his tears, confused by the question. What? The cold of a concrete floor, she continued, her voice echoing in the massive room. When you're coughing up blood and no one comes, when you scream that you're innocent, and the people who share your DNA just turn away. Tristan swallowed hard, a look of profound horror crossing his face. Daisy, what are you talking about? It doesn't matter, Daisy said, gripping her suitcase handle. Because it won't happen this time. Daisy, please, Declan begged from the floor, his hands clasped together like a man praying for salvation. Give us a chance to be the brothers you deserved. Let us protect you. Protect me, Daisy laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. The only people I needed protection from were the 5 of you. You didn't love me when I was begging on my knees. You don't get to love me now just because the blindfold was ripped off. She walked past Leo, pulling her suitcase behind her. Daisy, Tristan yelled, rushing forward and putting himself between her and the heavy mahogany doors. I won't let you walk out there. Your car, the brakes are cut. She tried to kill you. I don't drive the Porsche, Daisy said, looking him dead in the eye. I bought a used Volvo with my trust fund money yesterday. The Porsche is in the garage. Savannah can drive it to her trial for all I care. Tristan stood frozen, his arms dropping to his sides. He had no leverage. He had no power. The billions of dollars in his bank accounts couldn't buy back the sister he had shattered. Unlock the door, Tristan, she commanded one last time. Or I will call the police myself and add kidnapping to the Davenport family scandals. With a trembling, defeated hand, Tristan reached out and turned the deadbolt. The heavy door clicked open. Daisy didn't look back. She walked out of the drawing room, out the grand front doors, and into the crisp, biting air of the November afternoon. Behind her, she could hear the wailing sirens of the approaching police cars and the agonizing, broken sobs of 5 men who had finally learned the truth, a lifetime too late. She opened the door to her beat-up Volvo, tossed her suitcase in the passenger seat, and started the engine. As she drove down the winding driveway of the Davenport estate, she looked in the rear-view mirror one last time. The grand mansion looked like a tomb, and for the first time in her 2 lives, Daisy was completely, beautifully free. If you love this story of brutal revenge and second chances, smash that like button and subscribe for more daily audio dramas. Do you think Daisy should have forgiven her brothers, or did they get exactly what they deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to share this video with your friends to see whose side they are on. Stay tuned for the next twisted tale.